Picture this. You've written 90,000 words, hit the end. Something still feels off. Chances are one of the 8 storytelling pillars is cracked. Hello, my name is Jason, your friendly neighborhood story obsessive, former Kindlepreneur, researcher, and full-time note-taker on all things narrative. In today's video, we're running a structural stress test on your work, and that goes from nailing the core concept to sharpening the final line of your voice. And I'll show you where the weak spots hide and how to reinforce them before readers do that demolition for you. Let's get to the story earthquake proofing. So the first pillar is concept. Every story, from a grocery list scribbled on a napkin to a sprawling epic, begin with a single concept. And it's the high-level one-sentence pitch that either hooks someone instantly or sends them on their merry way. Is your book about a wizard school for orphans? Detective who solves crimes by tasting evidence? A romance between a time-traveling librarian and a Roman centurion? That's the concept. And a weak concept is one of the first and most fundamental cracks in your story's foundation. Now, while you can have some decent stories just deliver really good execution of a weak concept, these days in the world of AI, the concept is going to matter more and more because that execution will be easier to do than ever. So to stress test your concept, ask yourself this: what is the central question your story poses? For Jurassic Park, it's what happens when man resurrects dinosaurs for profit. For Hunger Games, it's what if children were forced to fight to the death as public entertainment? And a strong concept contains an inherent sense of conflict and intrigue. It combines a familiar element with an unexpected twist. And we understand school, but a wizard school is a twist. We understand theme park, but a dinosaur theme park is a twist. If your concept feels generic, like a story about a soldier, try adding that twist. Is it a soldier who has to fight in a war orchestrated by an alien species using Earth as a chessboard? Now we're getting somewhere. And a flimsy concept crumbles under the weight of a full narrative, but a solid one can support an entire universe of stories. But even the most brilliant concept is just a blueprint. So to build the full house, you need a framework. And for that, we turn to the plot. So pillar number 2 is plot. The plot is the sequence of events, the actual bones of your narrative, and it's the answer to the question, what happens next? But a list of events is not a plot. A plot is a chain of cause and effect. This happened, so this happened, which caused this to happen. And if you can replace the word so with and then, you've actually found a hole in your plot. The king died and then the queen died is just a sequence of events. The king died and so the queen died of grief is a plot. That one little word, so, introduces causality, and causality is what makes a story feel inevitable and satisfying. Most Western stories, for example, are built on a simple 3-part frame. And really all stories, but Westerns in particular, have the setup, the confrontation, and the resolution. The first act sets up the world and the hero's ordinary life before an inciting incident kicks them out the door. The second act is the messy middle, where the hero confronts obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. The stakes get higher and everything gets worse. The third act is the final showdown and the answer to the central story question. Now, this isn't just a restrictive formula, it's the pattern that mirrors how we psychologically process change and struggle in our own lives. The plot is that tangible journey your characters take, the path they walk from point A to point B. But the most perfectly engineered plot is useless without someone to experience it. The plot is just what happens, but the character is who it happens to. So that leads me to pillar 3, which is character. Now, if the plot is the skeleton, the characters are the heart and soul. Readers don't remember plot twists as much as they remember the people who survived them. A character is not a list of traits. A character is a collection of desires and fears and flaws and all kinds of emotions. The most common mistake writers make is creating characters who are merely passengers in the plot. Your character must be the driver. Their choices based on their unique personality and motivations must be the engine of your cause and effect chain. And if this isn't the case, then you're going to have readers who don't empathize with anything that happens. The secret to a compelling character lies in the gap between what they want and what they truly need. A character might start the story wanting to win a promotion at work, but what they need is to learn that their ambition is alienating their family. The plot you design should be the perfect machine to force them to confront this gap. And the events of the story should systematically strip away their ability to get what they want until they are forced to seek what they need. This journey from want to need is called a character arc. It's that change that happens to your character over time. Is the protagonist the same person on the last page as they are on the first? The answer is yes, then you've got a major weakness in your characters. And a character journey is shaped not just by events, but by the world they inhabit, which brings us to the next pillar, pillar number 4, which is setting. And setting is far more than just a backdrop. It's an active force in your story. Where and when your story takes place should influence everything from the character's dialogue to the central conflict. In fact, one of my mentors, David Farland, would actually say that you should start with the setting because it influences everything so perfectly. A story about a rebellion against an oppressive government feels very different in a futuristic cyberpunk metropolis than it does in a medieval fantasy kingdom. And the setting provides constraints and opportunities. A blizzard doesn't just make things cold, it isolates characters, it forces them together, creating a natural ticking clock, and can be a source of life or death conflict. Now, to stress test your setting, ask yourself this. If I move the story to a different time or place, would it fundamentally change? If the answer is no, then your setting is just a dressing. It's a painted backdrop on a stage. Make your world an actual character that participates in the story. How does the environment reflect the internal state of your protagonist? In a horror story, a decaying house can actually mirror a protagonist's psychological decay. In a romance, a beautiful blooming garden can reflect the blossoming relationship. The setting should press in on your characters, shaping their choices and forcing them to react. It's that soil from which the entire story grows. And that story grows one moment at a time through the craft of individual scenes, which leads us to the very next pillar, pillar number 5, which is your actual scenes. And if the plot is the skeleton, scenes are the individual bones. And a scene is the fundamental unit of storytelling, a self-contained moment of action and reaction that moves the story forward. And my friends over at StoryGrid, for example, you can check their YouTube out, called StoryGrid, they will actually start with the scene when they're teaching people how to write. Because if you can get the scene down, it's just a series of building blocks that goes out from there. Every single scene in your book must serve a purpose. It must either advance the plot or develop a character, and the best scenes do both at the same time. If you can cut a scene and the story still makes perfect sense, that scene is a crack in your foundation and you should definitely cut it. The golden rule of scene craft is actually show, don't tell. Don't tell me your character is angry. Show them gripping his coffee mug so hard his knuckles turn white. Don't tell me the relationship is failing. Show a dinner scene where the silence is louder than any argument. Showing immerses the reader in the experience. It hands them the sensory details and lets them draw the conclusion themselves, which is much more powerful than having a conclusion handed to them. A scene should enter with a specific goal for the character and end with a different outcome, often a setback of some kind that creates a question in the reader's mind and makes them desperate to keep reading and turn the page. That desperation, that page-turning quality, is almost always fueled by our next and most explosive pillar, conflict of the story. Conflict is essentially the engine of a story. Without it, you have a pleasant anecdote, not really a narrative. Nothing happens until something or someone gets in the character's way. Conflict is that force that tests your characters, reveals their true nature, and forces them to change. A story without conflict is like a car without gas. It looks fine, but it's not really going anywhere. The cracks here are often a lack of stakes or a conflict that is too easily resolved. Now, you'll get conflict in two different, we'll call them primary flavors. There's external and there's internal. External conflict is that visible struggle. The hero fighting the dragon, the detective hunting the killer, the rivals competing for the same prize. This can be man versus nature, man versus society, or even man versus the supernatural. But the most powerful stories layer external conflict over a roiling sea of internal conflict, also known as man versus self. The hero isn't just fighting a dragon, he's fighting his own cowardice. Detective isn't just hunting a killer, she's battling her own past trauma that the case has dredged up. The internal struggles give the external fight more meaning. The harder the struggle, the more meaningful the victory or the failure. And that meaning, the deep resonant why of your story, is our next pillar. Pillar number 7, theme. Theme is the big idea your story is wrestling with. It's what the story is about on a universal human level. It's not the plot, it's the meaning that arrives from the plot. A story can be about a man hunting a white whale, but its themes are obsession, humanity versus nature, and madness. Theme is not a moral or a message you beat your reader over the head with. It's an exploration, more of a question. Is redemption possible? Does love conquer all? What is the cost of vengeance? And one of my favorite ways to create theme is just to have multiple characters who represent multiple viewpoints around that theme. As authors, this could be one of the trickiest things that we do, where we want to make sure sure that every one of those characters can argue for their perspective of the theme just as well as a real person might argue that in real life. So if you're getting into like political questions and stuff like that, imagine trying to argue a political issue from both sides perfectly. Actually have really well thought out arguments from both the red and the blue. That's the kind of thought that needs to go into creating a good theme. A weak theme, or a theme that's clumsily handled, feels a little bit preachy and inauthentic. That theme should emerge naturally from the characters' journeys and the resolution of their conflicts. Your protagonist's arc is often the primary vehicle for that theme. You'll see it in the change that they have over time. And if your theme is about the corrupting nature of power, your protagonist's journey should demonstrate that corruption. Supporting characters can represent different facets of the thematic argument. And one character might believe redemption is possible, while another believes it's a lie. The story doesn't have to give a definitive answer, but it must explore the question honestly. And theme is that individual architecture that gives the entire structure significance. But the way all of these pillars are assembled and presented to the reader comes down to one final crucial element, which leads us to pillar number 8, voice. Voice is the magic. It's the intangible quality that makes your story uniquely yours. It's the personality of the narration. It's the combination of your word choice, your sentence structure, your tone, and the point of view you could choose to tell the story from. You could give 10 authors the exact same plot, character, and theme, and you would get 10 completely different books. That difference is voice. A story told from the first-person perspective of a cynical, hard-boiled detective will have a wildly different voice than the same story told from a whimsical, third-person, omniscient perspective. And a crack in this pillar often shows up as an inconsistent tone or a voice that doesn't match the story. You could have a dark, gritty thriller, but that shouldn't suddenly adopt a playful, comedic voice halfway through. The narrative voice is the lens through which the reader experiences every other pillar. It colors their perception of the plot, characters, and setting. Developing a strong, consistent voice is one of the hardest parts of writing, but it's also one of those parts that kind of just comes as you get more experience. It's that final coat of paint that brings the entire structure to life and makes it feel like a unified, deliberate work of art. Now, these 8 pillars are all interconnected. A weak character will lead to a predictable plot. A boring setting will create an uninspiring conflict. A clumsy voice will obscure a powerful theme. But when all 8 pillars are strong, they support each other, creating a structure that can stand the test of time and give your reader an experience that they will cherish. Now, these pillars aren't just something I made up for a YouTube video. They represent a distillation of how humans have understood narrative for thousands of years. We see the bones of this structure in Aristotle's Poetics, where he first broke down drama into components like plot, character, and thought, which is his word for theme. We see it formalized in the 19th century Freytag's Pyramid, which gave us the classic 5-part structure of introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. This was a model designed specifically for drama, mapping the emotional journey of an audience at the theater. Later in the 20th century, we get people like Joseph Campbell, who studied myths from around the globe and discovered a consistent pattern that he called the monomyth, or the hero's journey. This was something of a psychological map of transformation following a hero who leaves their ordinary world, faces trials in a supernatural one, and then returns with some kind of boon for their community. And these frameworks from the classic to the modern all reinforce the same core idea, that a story is not a random collection of events. It's a carefully engineered machine designed to create a specific emotional and intellectual experience. Now, understanding these pillars isn't about following any kind of rigid formula, although it's about understanding the deep-rooted psychology of what makes a story resonate with us as human beings. Now, running a stress test on your own work can be pretty tough because you're often too close to it. You built the thing, so you can't always see the cracks in the foundation. If you want a community of fellow story architects, and I call them story hackers, and a guide to help you check your blueprints every step of the way, I have something for you. I've put everything I know about this process into a private group called Story Hacker Gold. It's a school group where you can go through the entire process from finding that high concept idea to holding the finished book in your hands. We cover the tools that you need to market it, and we even get into how AI can enhance your process without compromising your own creativity or your ethics. So this is the system that has led authors to write a book a month easily while still making it a book that matches their unique vision. And I've personally used these methods to write a complete novel with my own world building and characters in just 1 week. So if that's interesting to you, I would check out the link down below, and I will hopefully see you there.